Hello there, you're watching One India News and this is me, Ansh Pandey. If there is any region in the world that has seen the most volatile times of the globe post-World War II, it is surely the Middle East, also known as the West Asia. The animosity in this specific region, the West Asia, is a product of intricate geopolitical dynamics which is shaped by historical rivalries, religious disparities and conflicting regional agendas. At the forefront of this volatility are the tensions between Iran and Israel, which is one of the most prominent conflict in this region, epitomizing a multifaceted conflict involving proxy warfare, cyber attacks and strategic maneuvering occasionally. Iran's backing of militant groups like the Hezbollah and the Hamas alongside its nuclear aspirations since 2015 has posed a challenge to regional stability for a long time. In this, the most prominent Iran's adversary is Israel, which for a long time has conducted military operations against the target in Syria and has forged several alliances with regional powers like the Saudi Arabia to counter Iranian influence. However, the recent escalation evident in last night's event has again turned spotlight on the precarious nature of this region, where anticipation of this conflict is now turning into global concern. Starting with what happened last night. Well, Iran launched a significant wave of drone and missiles toward Israel from its territory on Saturday night, marking the first ever direct assault on Israel by the Islamic Republic. The attack triggered air raid sirens across Israel early Sunday morning as the military worked to intercept the Iranian projectiles. Both the US-based system and the Iron Dome worked tirelessly to thwart every missile, and most of them were actually thwarted outside the borders of Israel, but some did land inside the region. The Israeli Defense Forces spokesman Admiral Daniel Hagari verified the attack, revealing that Iran had launched missiles into Israel while Israeli fighter jets were also deployed to counter Tehran's offensive. The sirens blared into southern Israeli communities at around 1:42 a.m. in night, spreading to other regions including the Jerusalem and towns in northern West Bank too. The Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps acknowledged the launching of numerous drones and missiles at specific Iranian targets, confirming the attack, but however they denied the launch of the ballistic missiles in the assault. The IDF reported that Iran fired more than 200 projectiles, with the majority intercepted by Israel's air defense system, also known as the Iron Dome. However, most missiles were downed outside Israeli airspace. Some caused a slight damage to infrastructure at a military base in southern Israel. Also, a 7-year-old girl was also severely injured after a missile struck her home and her head fell unconscious. Israel, in response, has vowed victory in its response to the attack and is probably planning to a retaliatory strike on Iran. However, the world leaders, including the US President Joe Biden, have stated and are trying their best to avoid the escalation between the two major powers of West Asia. Meanwhile, several celebrations were also reported in Iran after the strikes because they saw this attack as an answer to what Israel did to the Islamic Republic. The tensions between Tehran and Tel Aviv have been boiling for almost 6 months since the Gaza war started. But this is actually a multifaceted and a multi-layer proxy war. For years, Tehran has used its proxy army of more than a dozen militias and terror groups across the Middle East, with outposts around the world to foment instability, carry out attacks, and expand the scope of the Islamic Revolution across the world. These groups includes both Hamas and Hezbollah. These groups, some with their own political parties, have infiltrated and taken over local governments too, as a part under the influence of IRGC Guard Corps, a paramilitary that was formed in 1979 to protect Iran's fundamentalist regime. A special operations unit, the Elite Quds Force, has also provided arms, training and financial support to these militias and political movements across the Middle East, including Bahrain, Iraq, Lebanon, the Palestinian territories, Syria, and including Yemen. Israel, ever since the start of the Gaza war, has been accusing that it's Iran that is actually playing the chess with Hamas and Hezbollah to coerce Israel more oftenly. And so, a pivotal moment arrived on 1st of April when a sudden blast rocked the Iranian consulate in Damascus, leading to death of 7 members inside the embassy and one big face of IRGC-2, General Mohammad Reza Zahedi. The strike, which was the 5th in Syria within the last 8 days, resulted in death of these individuals, including the senior commander from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force, the Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, a very known face after Qasem Soleimani. This latest escalation came amid heightened regional tensions compounded by the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Tehran was quick to pass the buck on Israel, which kept a stum on the matter after the strike. It seems like that it's again the same war wars which usually happens between Iran and Israel. However, tensions started boiling on 2nd of April when Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, vowed revenge to attack on the consulate. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei pledged retribution against Israel for the assault on Tehran's consulate in Damascus, which resulted in the death of 7 revolutionary guards, including 2 big generals. Khamenei affirmed, and we quote, "Our courageous forces will ensure that the nefarious regime faces consequences for their similar crimes." Meanwhile, the Israeli officials speaking anonymously to the American media acknowledged the attack, attributing it to the individuals linked to the past assault on Israeli and American interest with plans for further attack. They clarified, however, that the embassy was not intended to be attacked, but somehow it was targeted. On 4th of April, the US's CIA made a startling claim. The Central Intelligence Agency informed Israel about a potential retaliation from Iran within the next 48 hours or the next few days after the alleged Israeli airstrike destroyed the Iranian consulate in Syria, resulting in these deaths. This alert came amid escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, with Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi also vowing that the attack will not go unanswered. Amid the growing concerns, the US also revolved in the aftermath of the airstrike in Damascus, and it stated that it might fear that it can provoke renewed attack on American troops by the Iran-backed militia in Syria and Iraq. The Lieutenant General of US, Alexis Grinkovich, the top US Air Force commander for the Middle East, highlighted the risk with Israel's action escalating the conflict regionally and impacting the global and broader geopolitical dynamics. In the midst of all these developments, the US also made an effort to protect its interest by urging Iran to not target American assets or its bases in the Middle East. However, Iran, on the other hand, issued a stern warning to the United States, demanding to step aside as Iran prepared for the retaliatory strikes following a suspected Israeli attack on its consulate. Mohammad Jamshidi, the Iranian president's deputy chief of staff for political affairs, delivered this message, cautioning the US against the involvement in potential hostilities instigated by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, also known as Bibi in local. In response, the US reportedly emphasized to Iran the importance of refraining from targeting American interests. As these efforts were going on, the world, as expected, also started backing off and preparing for the attack in the region. Lufthansa, a prominent German airline, suspended operations in Iran as a part of the safety measures. Soon enough, Tehran announced that it is closing the Strait of Hormuz, considering the world's most important shipping route. On Saturday, Iran also seized a container ship off the UAE coast with 25 crew members aboard. Out of them, 17 were Indian. Israel then accused Iran of the piracy and said that the country will bear the consequences if it decides to further escalate the situation. Iran, meanwhile, stated that the vessel is related to the Zionist regime, that is Israel, in the Gulf, and so it will not get released. And so, last night, on 13th of April, Iran launched an attack on Israel, plunging the region into a very deep turmoil. The airspace over the Middle East One serene is now fraught with tensions as the nations brace for a potential fallout. The global community stands in shock, anxiously waiting for the next development and fervently hoping to avoid further escalation between the two biggest adversaries of the region. Iran has actually never even considered Israel as an existing nation, but still they want to end the Zionist regime that has existed in West Asia. In response to the escalating crisis, the President of the UN Security Council also announced that an emergency meeting will be convened on 14th of April at the request of Israel's ambassador to the UN. The leaders from the world have meanwhile also condemned Iran's aggression, while regional powers such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt are now advocating for moderation too. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed a deep alarm over the escalating situation, warning of a grave risk of the widespread conflict in the region, urging all parties to exercise restraint. He has emphasized the imperative of avoiding actions that can trigger a large-scale military confrontation across multiple fronts in the Middle East. Following Guterres' lead, other world leaders including Rishi Sunak and Anthony Albanese called for de-escalation and diplomacy over the conflict. However, the situation remains fluid and uncertain till now, with world leaders holding its breath in the anticipation of what may unfold next. It's most likely that now Israel is going to attack Iran within the next few days possibly, and it is surely going to draw more condemnation across the world. But there is one fact that one cannot deny at all. The world has never been so volatile like this over the last 80 years, and now it has started boiling again, with West Asia again being the primal hotspot.